Welcome into BKL Nightly. I'm Thad Brown along with Caleb Carr. It is Monday. It is March the 9th. More importantly, it is the beginning of the legal tampering period. Essentially, it's the start of free agency. That's what we're doing today. So the Bills have made one move. We'll talk about that. More losses than gains at this point, but there's plenty to get to here on day one of free agency. So to be fair, so everybody knows, we are recording this at about 7:15 on Monday. Obviously, there'll be a ton of moves as we progress through the next few hours. I am monitoring social media just in case the Bills grab someone else while we are recording. And the quick update is that has not happened.
Nothing yet.
Okay. So the one player the Bills have signed so far, we'll start with that, and that is former Atlanta nickel corner D. Alford. He was reportedly signed by the Bills to a 3-year contract worth $21 million total, $10 million as a guarantee. Alford is a unique guy. He went to a Division II college, graduated in 2019, and then played in the CFL for 2 years. Actually won a championship with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Did you know
Blue Bombers?
I'm a Winnipeg fan.
Are you?
Believe it or not. I'm a Winnipeg Jets fan in hockey. So if there is a such thing as a Canadian football team I follow, it is Winnipeg. I don't have T-shirts or banners.
No, nothing?
No,
not
nothing.
Even a hat?
No, not even a hat.
Bad fake fan.
Exactly.
Fake fan.
Mostly fake. Anyway, so Alford goes from the Winnipeg Blue Bombers to Atlanta and becomes their nickel corner. And then this past year, the Falcons drafted Billy Bowman in the 4th round. And in training camp, he won the nickel corner job. Then during the season, in week 2, one of Atlanta's outside corners, A.J. Terrell, gets hurt. So D. Alford takes over on the outside for 3 weeks. Then the week that Terrell comes back, Billy Bowman gets hurt. So now Alford becomes the nickel corner for a while. Bowman comes back for essentially 2 games. One of those games Alford missed, I'm assuming because of an injury. I couldn't figure that out. But then Bowman gets hurt again, and Alford plays the end of the season. So he is a part-time starter, former nickel. And Caleb, the thing that this makes sense for the Bills is that Alford is a better pass defender than a run defender. And in the new Bills defense, this isn't the 4-3 where Taron Johnson's on the field all the time like the Bills had under Sean McDermott. This 3-4, the nickel corner, is literally going to be old school nickel, where when other teams go into passing downs and you want to bring an extra defensive back out, this is the guy. So I think this does make a good amount of logic in terms of why he should be okay in Buffalo.
Yeah, definitely. And there's not like a you kind of listen to what you just said, where he lost the starting job and then he gained it, like he got it because of injury, and then he was out for a game, and then so like he's not going from Atlanta to Buffalo and there's going to be this drastic like change of his role or his like amount of play. Like we assume. Yeah. Well, if he plays the nickel, and if the nickel is what we, like you said, what we assume it's going to be, it's not going to be this drastic change. So I think it's going to be a decent shift for him. I think it's a good signing. I think it's definitely not the splash that Bills fans are looking for. And again, we're recording kind of early, so that could still come. But this is good. This fits the defense that they want. And that's kind of what we assumed was going to happen all along, was that this free agency was just going to be getting guys that fit Jim Leonhard's defense. Because right now we're kind of in a transition period, and there's a lot of guys on this team that don't fit the Jim Leonhard defense. And we've already talked about how they might try to make those guys fit or find spots for those, but this is definitely a signing that is okay. Jim Leonhard wants this.
This is a hole plugger.
Yes.
You have a hole at nickel corner. This guy will plug it. And the money is reasonable, 3 for $21. We were comparing to other guys who've been signed. Mick Robertson is probably a really good backup. He went 2 for $16. A couple guys who are on contract 2 who are going to be starters, Cordell Flott and Eric Stokes, got 3 for $30, 3 for $45, and reversed them in terms of which guy got which.
Yep.
But yeah, this is not spectacular. And to your point about whether the Bills or their fans should expect that, I don't think there's a lot of spectacular available in free agency right now.
And I don't think the Bills have the money to sign a lot of spectacular either.
To chase that.
So.
Maybe Trey Hendrickson, we'll talk about that maybe a little while later. But what the Bills are going to need to do, and what they've done a lot of, is you go through free agency and you plug your holes, whatever you need an opening at. So you don't go into the draft thinking, oh, I need to have this position filled, so therefore I'm going to reach for that in the draft. You want to avoid that.
Yeah,
so
that's a good point.
The Bills have filled their nickel corner. Let's move on.
Good job.
That's really all it is.
Yeah,
that's what we're doing.
It is. But I think he's good. Again, he's probably not going to see the field a whole ton. That's kind of our expectation.
Well, he's the. I mean, he'll play.
He'll play,
but
just
bit,
not at the same level as
Taron Johnson.
No. So.
This is a 50 defensive snaps per game kind of guy.
I think he showed in Atlanta
50%.
that he can play and he can step up when he needed to.
And the book on him is that he's a not good run defender. PFF
which doesn't need to be.
Exactly.
So
that's not what he's going to do in Buffalo. He's going to defend the pass.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't think he's a great pass defender either. As a 29-year-old who has spent multiple years in the CFL and kind of had to build himself up in the NFL, this is not a star. He's a hole plugger, and that's totally fine.
It's okay.
All right. The number 2 story regarding the Bills is not someone they signed, but someone they lost here. Mitch Trubisky is headed to Tennessee reportedly on a 2-year contract. So this is not a starter, but clearly the backup quarterback spot is something the Bills are going to have to address. Shane Buechele is still on the roster, so in theory it could be him. I don't think anybody's excited about Shane Buechele starting for 4 weeks if Josh Allen suffers that kind of.
I love Shane Buechele.
Yeah, you don't. Don't lie. Don't lie.
Hey, I was on the Buechele over Trubisky train at the beginning of training camp. I'm not anymore, but I was for a hot second.
So the Bills need to figure out what to do now at backup quarterback. And a couple of the guys that were available in free agency, Marcus Mariota, Gardner Minshew, who for my money were the 2 best options available.
Definitely. Yeah.
They're both signed.
Yep.
So in terms of what the Bills have now to think about, you're talking about Case Keenum, who isn't a terrible option. Jimmy Garoppolo, who I don't love.
No, not as much.
But he did work with current quarterback coach Bo Hardegree when they were both with the Raiders a few years ago. And in this league where I know we all look at it as stats and who had the better numbers and that's who you should want, it's still a who you know league.
Yeah. So
Hardegree working with Jimmy G might grease the skids on that a little bit. But after those guys, the pickings get slim pretty fast.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, I'm gonna be a fan of bring Tyrod Taylor back to Buffalo.
That's another option, yeah.
For probably until he goes somewhere else. But other than that, I mean, I was looking at a couple lists. I mean, you got a guy like, and none of these I'm super excited about, but you got a guy like a Jake Browning who did start a few games for Cincinnati. Now they weren't pretty, but he started and he played, and you can't say that about a lot of backup quarterbacks. Like you can't say, oh, they've actually played recent games in the league. You're not going to be able, but Browning you can. So that kind of gives him some credit. I mean, a guy like there's a Zach Wilson.
No, absolutely not.
I don't know. Again, I don't like it.
Yeah.
But like,
well, I'll give you one down the list that I would kind of be intrigued by. But Sam Howell had some good moments with Washington.
He was a guy that I had down too.
Kyle Allen experience, kind of been around the block a little bit, but
yeah.
Josh Johnson's literally played for everybody.
Josh Johnson's also like 40 years old.
He is.
I mean, let's not.
He come back.
I don't think that's where you want to go.
I think sitting here right now, Tyrod in the current situation,
Tyrod's not bad.
Is the guy.
And he has experience in Buffalo. Now, obviously, it's a completely different organization
2 regimes ago now, which
than
is weird
it
to
was
say.
then. Yeah. But it's still familiar, and I mean, I don't think I'm the only Bills fan out there that still kind of has a soft spot for him.
Is Kirk Cousins a potential idea though? Yeah, I don't think so.
I don't. What would his contract situation be?
Yeah, you have to pay him a ton.
You'd have to pay him a ton, and I don't think anyone wants to pay that for someone they know is going to be a backup. You're only paying that to bring him in if you think he can compete for the starting
Russell
job.
Wilson, I want no part of.
Nope.
Joe Flacco probably isn't available. Geno Smith's going to start somewhere, or at least
Is he?
He's going to think he's going to.
He's going to compete somewhere.
Yeah. He won't come to Buffalo to be the straight.
No. He'll go somewhere where he'll compete, and someone will be willing to bring him in to compete for the starting job.
Here's the other argument I saw on social media today. How about just draft the guy? How about just
that's always an option. Then you're stuck with it's an option, but then you're stuck with you're not going to take a high pick on him. You're not going to go
right.
I mean, what's the earliest you take?
5th, maybe 4th.
Maybe. Yeah, I would say. I mean, you're picking up. You pick up an extra 6th round based off that Taron Johnson trade. So you now have an extra 6th round pick. So maybe you get a guy in the late round, but now you're banking on a QB competition between Shane Buechele and a 6th round quarterback for your backup start.
Well, I don't like the idea of, if I need the importance of a backup, we've always kind of established as, if you need someone to replace Josh Allen for 4 to 5 games, you want somebody to keep the season on the rails. Because if Josh misses 1 game, who cares?
Yeah.
If Josh misses 13 games, the season's over anyway.
Yes.
So you need somebody in that happy medium. I don't want a 6th round rookie or a 5th round rookie being that guy, because I don't feel like I can trust him to keep things going. I've wanted Buffalo to draft a quarterback in that realm the last couple of years, just to kind of build them and develop them. And now if you're in this spot, now all of a sudden you got a guy you can turn to, but they have not done that.
I was just going to say that a really good option would be signing a Tyrod Taylor and then
draft somebody anyway.
And then draft a 6th round guy, have him compete with Shane Buechele for that 3rd spot or that practice squad spot. And then maybe you can keep him on the roster for a year or 2. And once Tyrod's contract is up, because I doubt if they sign Tyrod, it would be to a long-term deal. So once Tyrod is up, maybe he's grown and maybe he's a reliable backup at that point.
The tough thing is that you have multiple needs to fill on this team.
Yes.
And your GM, his best work has come using 5th and 6th round picks on non-QBs.
Yeah.
So spending one of those on a guy that you never want to see the field is a tough ask.
Yeah.
The other guy that moved on, we'll go to this one first, Taron Johnson, who was just going to be released, but as it turned out at the last minute, the Raiders said, hey, we'll take him, and we're able to engineer reportedly a trade with the Bills. The trade is your classic next to nothing trade, a 7th rounder for a 6th rounder. Taron Johnson turning 30 this year, play declined last year, doesn't fit the defense, all kinds of good reasons for the Bills to move on from him.
Yeah, and like you said, the trade is next to nothing, but it's better than just releasing him. Like, you still move on from the contract, you still move on from him, and now you get to move forward however many spots in the draft. So it's just a little bit of extra draft capital. I mean, you look at the trade, I do think that Taron Johnson is a better player than a 6th and 7th round swap.
Most likely.
But for what the Bills were originally going to do, this is an improvement.
The other thing about this, too, is you think 6th for 7th, and immediately like, whatever, it's no big deal. Well, the Raiders are going to pick 2nd in the 6th round pick. Yeah, so you're getting like a near 5th round pick right
That's
there,
a good
right?
point.
Something in the high
That's a good
200s. And like we just said, Brandon Beane is damn good picking in that 5th, 6th round region. So to me, I think there's a good chance that, even though it doesn't sound like much, you have traded Taron Johnson for a player that you're likely going to get something out of, because this GM
could
is
develop
proven.
into a backup or something.
Yeah.
Or it could even be used as, trade capital at some point. Like,
Sure.
you could, if you want to take a 5th round and move further up into the 5th, you give them yours and maybe that 6th or something. Like, you can use that for something to move ahead to get a guy that you really like, possibly.
Now, the Bills did not have a 7th, so we don't know if it's the Jets 7th or the Cowboys 7th. But if it's the Cowboys 7th, which is they're picking mid-round, you've moved up 45 spots.
Yeah.
And again, to a spot where your GM has succeeded. So this is not a next to nothing type move. I think there's a little gas to this fire that the Bills have built.
There definitely is.
The Bills did keep an important player before free agency began. That would be Connor McGovern. The center signs back with Buffalo, 3 years, $42 million. And I think most, Caleb, the fan base, was pretty happy about this agreement.
Oh, definitely. Especially when you look at what other centers were out there other than Tyler Linderbaum, who I think was probably out of the options for Buffalo, probably out of the not in their wheelhouse.
Well, he signed 3 for 81, so
Yeah.
he was out of everybody's price
Most
range.
people's, yeah. But this is great. I mean, you look at this offensive line being able to keep most of it. What is it? 4 out of 5 spots intact is huge, because this offensive line has been one of the biggest, most consistent parts about this Buffalo offense these past few years. So being able to bring in a guy like McGovern, and then 1, not having to try to find a guy that's better than him, and 2, not having to worry about finding a guy that's worse than him is definitely a big deal.
Few different things that went into this. There weren't many centers available this year.
Yeah,
now, the Packers just cut Elgton Jenkins today, so that would have been another one to go on the list. But I think the Linderbaum contract, 3 for 81, shows you how valuable a good center was going to be this year. The Raiders have oodles of money to spend. They're about to get a rookie quarterback. There's lots of reasons for them to overpay. So the Linderbaum contract to me is a one-off, even if it still makes
definitely
McGovern's deal look good. But by preventing the Bills from having to go out, there's a world where if the Bills wanted to play hardball with McGovern, or if he did not want to sign, you're stuck going with Cedric Van Pran Granger as your starter. And he's been okay. He's been here for 2 years. He's still got a job, so that's a positive.
Yeah.
But clearly the Bills did not want to go that route. So this is 100% a good thing all around. The only thing I'll say is in terms of the contract, it makes him a top 5 paid center. I don't think he's a top 5 center. I think he's close, but not quite that good.
Yeah, but like you said, for how valuable a good center is, I think it's okay to overpay a little bit. We just talked about how much the Raiders overpaid.
Right.
I think it's okay. Now, there's other positions that the Bills need money for, but
the other thing I'll say to that too is the Raiders also overpaid because you need an experienced guy to make calls for your quarterback.
Yep.
The Bills don't have that. Josh Allen, I think, does a lot of the calls. So the value of a center is not as big probably to Buffalo as it would be for a number of other teams.
That's a good point.
Doesn't mean that I still think it's a good signing.
Yeah.
And your point about keeping or not having to change over 2 of the starting offensive linemen, that to me makes this deal worth it. And I think no one in Buffalo or Western New York would be unhappy about paying this kind of money.
No.
One other player who's been lost for the Bills, and that would be on day 1 of free agency here, is Reggie Gilliam, who goes to New England for 2 years, $12 million total. Gilliam's loss, I don't know how big a deal it is because I don't know how much Joe Brady wants to keep using fullback in the new offense. And the new offense may not be that new, but without whatever qualifications Sean McDermott put on it, Joe Brady can do what he wants. Does that mean that they don't need a fullback? I don't know. In addition, Patrick Ricard, who's probably the best fullback in football as of this recording, is still available. So the Bills, if it's not Reggie Gilliam, they could still find somebody else. But Gilliam's been good. He's been dependable. Had a better season last year than I think he's had in his entire career with the Bills. So it is a bit of a loss.
Yeah, it is. And he's also just one of those guys that you just like having around. Like Bill, he was always one of those underrated guys that it felt like whenever he would catch a pass or like whenever he would get a run, you're like, oh, there's Gilliam.
Yeah, I know.
Hey, look at him.
The
20-yard reception. Let's go. And it's I think it is just because he's a fullback, and I think every fan base does that with fullbacks. But I do think that Bills fans had a little bit of a Gilliam, yeah, we really like that guy. He was always cool to have around. So it definitely sucks. I think it sucks a little bit more that he's going to the Patriots. The Patriots just seem to continue to be stealing the Bills guys. But I like you said, I don't think it's a huge loss.
When you talk about stealing the Bills guys, this is another 2 years in a row, a really cool interview in the locker room goes to New England because Matt Collins was obviously one of the more unique guys ever to live. Mm-hmm. And then Reggie Gilliam's a good dude, good to talk to, good in the locker room. So, again, not a giant loss, but certainly something worth discussing. So that's the update on the moves. And I'll just go through social media here, see if anything else is going on. But now that we are up to date with when we're recording here at 7:30, what do the Bills do from here? And I think, Caleb, the place I want to focus on is the defense, because offense feels kind of set, right?
Yeah.
At guard, they could easily replace Dave Edwards, who did go to New Orleans today, with Alec Anderson.
Yes.
They've added their big receiver in DJ Moore. There'll probably be more, and I don't know if it'll be in free agency. Maybe we get into that. But O-line is mostly set. Running back room is set. Quarterbacks, they need a backup. We've discussed it. So let's go on defense. Edges, I think, to me, are the spot that's kind of catching my eye. A number of them got signed today. Joe Asaya by the Jets. Boye Mafe stayed in Seattle, I think it was. So there's guys who are off the board already. Let me start with this. What are the chances the Bills are big game hunting with Trey Hendrickson right now?
0. I don't think it happened. I'm sure that Brandon Beane is I'm sure they've looked at it. You can't not look at it. But I just don't think unfortunately, I just don't think it's in the cards. I mean, he's the top guy in free agency right now. Not offense, defense, doesn't matter. He's the top guy. And when you're the team that is currently lowest down on cap, or they might not be right now, but I know for a period of time they were over the cap by the most. It's not. I just don't think it's going to happen.
The Bills are going to have room to spend. The short story is they've got to clear some space to bring the DJ Moore contract in, and then once that's in, they can restructure it. That'll create $17 million in room. The Dawson Knox contract plus a couple other things. They probably went into free agency with about $20 million to spend. Now they've burned some of it on D. Alford here, so that's already something that's happened, and on Connor McGovern for that matter. But to your point, Trey Hendrickson is probably not in their price range no matter what. And we've talked a little bit on this show that the elite single pass rusher formula does not, of recent memory or recent history, go to the Super Bowl very often.
No, it doesn't, and it hasn't worked out for the Bills much either. They've taken a couple of big swings, and most of the time they're older guys, Von Miller, Joey Bosa, and I think Joey Bosa worked out a lot better than Von Miller did, but it still wasn't that like big, huge push you over the edge piece that I think they hoped it was going to be.
It didn't work, bottom line.
Yeah.
All right, so what do they do at edge? Because in this new 3-4 look, you can use Greg Rousseau out there, but he's probably not ideal for that. There are some pass rushing situations where they'll go 4 defensive linemen and then Greg Rousseau is fine. But the Nick Bonito, Jonathan Cooper types that Jim Leonard came from in Denver are not currently on this roster. Who has your attention in terms of what might be available in free agency for the Bills to attack?
I mean, this is tough because there were a lot of guys that I was looking at that I kind of liked, and just as the day was going on, they just kept dropping like flies. So this could very well be outdated by the time that this airs.
Well, just so we're sitting here at 7 o'clock, and I knew it was a lot. Jalen Phillips, big contract to Carolina. Odafe Owe, I think I'm saying that right. Boye Mafe, Kwity Paye, Dramont Jones, Joe Asai, Arden Key, Malcolm Kuntz stayed in Las Vegas. That must have been a recent one. I didn't see that one happen. And then a couple lower level guys. So right off the bat, that's 8 edges, 8 pretty top level edges who all signed contracts for more than 8 figures per year who are already off the board.
Yeah. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna throw it back to you because I have a list of a couple guys that I don't love. I'm interested to know what you have before I show my cards a little bit.
Kuntz was a guy that I really liked because he had 8 sacks in 2023, had a big knee injury in 24, missed the whole season, came back last year. So last year, that was your typical down season coming off a big injury kind of thing. And then to pounce on him coming off a not so great productive year, but with the idea that, hey, he should get better, that made a lot of sense to me, but that apparently is off the board. Arnold Ebiketie, who had 6 sacks, Falcons, 6 sacks in 23 and 24, down year last year. Yeah. That's an idea. You want to get a little revenge in the Pats. Kaylee Van Chasen, that was the other one too.
I was thinking about. He's only 26 too.
Yeah. In terms of guys who are not in their 30s and have higher upside like potential,
not a ton.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah.
If you go to the spot track projection, which look, those guys do a great job, but they're not the end all be all. However, market value, right? In terms of guys that would fit, it's Trey Hendrickson, Joey Bosa. I don't think the Bills want to play the Joey Bosa game again this year. He doesn't really fit anyway.
Probably not.
Ebiketie, Chasen, Leonard Floyd, no. And then it's Al-Quadin Muhammad. Cam, an idea for you?
Him real quick. He's 31, and I think I would prefer, and I think the Bills prefer too, to go a little bit younger. But if you do want to bring in a guy that, a veteran, he had a few good years in
Detroit most recently.
In Detroit, he had 11 sacks last season with Detroit. Now, like, he had a 3-sack game and a 2.5-sack game. So a lot of those were like spurts of games. Like, he wasn't consistent throughout the whole year. But he had a really good season in Detroit last year. He had a couple good seasons prior with Indianapolis. So you see if he can transfer that from Detroit to Buffalo. I don't know. I don't know if this was just kind of like a one-off year, but if you want to go with a little bit of an older guy that has a little bit more experience, I do think that he might be one of the better options at that idea.
But to underline where the edge market is right now, AJ Epinesa, of guys who are available, has the 8th highest market value projection. So he's the 8th most valuable player per spot track that's available. And like we said, the 2 guys at the top, Hendrickson and Bosa,
are probably
the Bills are probably not going to touch. So it is getting dried up pretty quick. Beyond that, the linebacking available players, I don't think has been as hammered today on day one of free agency.
No, not as much. There's been a few of the top guys have gone, but not nearly as much as the edges have.
So did Jonathan Greener get signed or no?
I haven't seen
that at all either.
Yet, no.
No, okay. I don't know if the Vikings are going to release him. They were talking about a trade. That would be a fun option. I mean, that's a legit top level guy.
Yes.
But we'll put that aside for now. Bobby Okereke from the Giants in terms of linebacking option makes sense.
Yeah.
The Bills' new inside linebacker coach is a former Giants coach, so there's experience there. Obviously, Leo Chenal from the Chiefs, a guy who at Wisconsin worked with Jim Leonard. That's the guy that's the odds-on favorite. I still feel okay about where the Bills are at linebacker-wise, but you feel like they need to pounce here at edge, or you're going to be stuck trying to mine through the draft, which you can do. It's deep in the draft, but I don't think the Bills want to roll in to this season with what they have now and only rookies.
Yeah. Another name at linebacker that the Broncos actually just released a couple hours ago. Is it Dre Greenlaw?
Yeah.
Dre Greenlaw, 28 years old, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, 1 interception last season. Broncos released him, so Jim Leonard connection there potentially. I think that could be another decent guy that you could bring in at the linebacker position.
Real quick, let's talk about a couple of other players around the league who got signed today. I think the number one guy I want to talk about is Ken Walker, who goes to the Chiefs. 3 years, $45 million. The Chiefs have never had, under Pat Mahomes at least, a running back of this caliber, we would think, right? Kareem Hunt is maybe close. You know, I
was thinking, I'm trying to think, when was Kareem Hunt's first stint with the Chiefs? That wasn't with Pat Mahomes, right?
I thought it was.
Because Kareem Hunt's when he was first with the Chiefs, he was elite. Hunt was very, very good his first go around with the Chiefs, and then obviously there were some problems with him off the field. He bounced around a little bit. Then he came back with the Chiefs this past 2 seasons.
Yes.
And he's been okay. But when he was first with the Chiefs, he was really, really good. But was that with Mahomes?
Yes. Okay. His last good year was Mahomes', I think, first starting year, 2018.
That's tough
then.
Together. That's tough then.
Either way, though, Walker is a heck of an upgrade over what they had lately.
100%, yes. Yeah. Isaiah Pacheco, I always had high hopes for him, but he just never really got there. But Kenneth Walker is definitely a huge upgrade, and yeah, I would say it's not crazy to say he's the best running back that's gonna have stood behind Mahomes.
How much does he change that offense? I think the home run hitting ability is big. I would put Ken Walker right around the 10th best running back in the NFL. I know I got plenty of pushback from that on social media today, but without going through all the backs, that's the Josh Jacobs kind of realm. Who else was close to that? I don't remember who I thought would be 11 or 12. Obviously, the Seahawks didn't want him, and they had plenty of cap room. So there's an argument there that if the Seahawks don't want him and they just won a Super Bowl, maybe they know something. I think he's better than Zach Charbonnet. I've always been a Ken Walker fan.
Yes.
So I think this does a lot, in theory, to open up what the Chiefs do offensively. He hasn't been much of a pass catcher in his career, or at least he's not thought of, but he actually had almost identical receiving numbers to James Cook last year. So I think he can catch the ball.
Well, is James Cook like this big receiving back?
He's not right now.
No. Yeah. So,
but people think James Cook is,
Yeah.
right?
I think this could change the Chiefs offense quite a bit, actually, because they've always been more watching the Chiefs. They've always been more pass heavy. Now, that was obviously when Travis Kelce was at his peak and you had Tyreek Hill there. They've obviously changed a little bit, but it still feels like they want to go to the pass game more than they want to go to the run game, mainly because they haven't really had anyone back there that can handle a full game. Like the Bills multiple times this season won games with the run game. I can't say the Chiefs have really done that as much. They maybe have been able to a couple times, but not nearly as much as it seems the Bills have. With this, I think Kenneth Walker has the ability to win a game for a team with the run game. So it definitely opens things up. And then now obviously with Pat Mahomes being out, how much does that really change this season? It might help this season, honestly. You can maybe lean on the run game more because you're going to have a backup quarterback in there. So I definitely think this helps their offense a ton.
2-second answer as we go to shut the show down. Malik Willis to the Dolphins. Any bother at all from a Bills point of view? Not even.
More bother than when Tua was back there.
That's fair. I kind of don't mind the idea. Take a shot at him. If it doesn't work, then you draft high next year and you get a quarterback then. All right, that's going to do it for Caleb Carr and Thad Brown. Thanks for watching BKL Nightly. We'll be back again on Thursday with absolutely a ton more free agency updates and discussion. Catch us then. Thanks for watching.